What you are seeing right now wasn't even supposed to happen. Klay Thompson blew his teammates away at a 5-on-5 scrimmage. The first time he's played with the starters in over 2 years. First time he's ever played with Andrew Wiggins. Then Klay dropped a huge hint about when he's going to return. We'll get to that, but this was a gigantic unplanned step. And before I tell you what went down at the scrimmage, why did it even go down? Well, the Warriors flew to Denver last week to play the Nuggets. But the game was suddenly canceled. It turns out that the Nuggets had enough players to play, but just a few hours before tip-off, let's say they chickened out of the game. They took 4 players that were questionable and just downgraded them to out, which forced the NBA to cancel the game because you can't play a game with less than 8 players. The Nuggets knew this before they downgraded those 4 players. This was an absolutely cheap move to dodge the dubs. Even Draymond said it was cheap. So when the game is rescheduled, which will probably add a day to our break, we will have to play them at full strength, but they got to sneak in a win when we weren't at full strength only 2 days ago? Not to mention, this will more than likely add a back-to-back to our schedule, also advantage Denver. Yes, and on top of that, the Warriors had a game 2 days later in Utah, so it didn't make sense to fly all the way back to the Bay. So they had to spend 3 days and 4 flights for one game in Utah. Yeah, they were pissed until Steve Kerr changed the plan. Because the starters had prepped for an actual game that night, they were physically and mentally ready to play a full team scrimmage with Klay Thompson. That would never have happened if the Nuggets didn't chicken out. His first minutes with Steph in a long time, or his first minutes with Wiggins ever, were supposed to come in his debut this year. So thanks, Nuggets? The scrimmage was so important because this was a step in Klay's comeback that he wouldn't have had otherwise. Even Klay said, last night was a breakthrough moment. Being out there, going up and down with the first unit, that was a big moment for me. A silver lining in the NBA canceling that game. Now, the scrimmage started and Klay was actually nervous, even though it was just a scrimmage. After 5 minutes, though, he shook it off and showed all the work he's been putting in the last 2 years. Steph said Klay took over 17 shots in 12 minutes, and he made over 50%. Andrew Wiggins was so blown away that he told Andre Iguodala, bro, he doesn't even dribble. And Iggy said, yeah, do you know how that's going to open things up for other guys? So Klay looked great, which we've been hearing about for a few months now, but to actually see him doing it with the Warriors starters is huge. And I want to get to what Klay said about when he's going to return, because that was actually the most impactful thing that I heard. But what we saw the next day blew me away even more. Dude hit 1, 2, 3, 24 straight 3-pointers in a row before the Utah game. That makes me think that we're going to see Klay at near full strength a lot sooner than I expected. I think that Klay is coming back at exactly the right moment for this team. I mean, yeah, they're still on top of the West, but the offense has really slowed down a lot recently. Overall this season, they are 4th in offense and 1st in defense, which is why they have the #1 record. But the last month, the offense has dropped all the way to 16th. That is below average. The defense is still top 5, which is why they're winning games. But what is going on? There are actually a few things like not having certain players because of COVID, and especially not having Draymond for 3 games recently. But the #1 reason is Steph's shooting.
That make you go,
This is his worst non-injured season from 3 ever. But he's still shooting 40%, which is elite. Of course, I'm not worried about Steph at all. He is the MVP frontrunner. But reuniting these Splash Brothers right now is going to unlock Steph even more. And I can admit it. I did not see this coming, like at all. Before the season, ESPN's official prediction had Golden State ranked 11th in the power rankings. They had the Lakers way ahead of them, the Nuggets, and even the Mavericks. That is the 6th seed in the West, which is actually lower than what I had predicted. I said they would finish 5th in the West. Either way, we were all wrong. What I didn't see was this depth and this consistency. First off, Draymond Green has turned the clock back like 5 years. He is easily top 2 for Defensive Player of the Year, and his chemistry with Steph has never been better. Draymond may not be like great, improved on offense like he predicted that he would be, but his playmaking is key to everyone else on offense. This is huge for a guy who looked overrated just a few years ago. When Steph, Klay, and KD were all gone that first season and Dre had to carry the team, he couldn't. They won 15 games. But just because Draymond can't carry a crappy team doesn't mean he's washed. It means he is a Hall of Famer in his role, which is what we're seeing this year. Andrew Wiggins is a borderline all-star. He's averaging about 19 points and 5 boards, shooting 43% from deep with great defense. That is by far his best all-around and most consistent season. This is the guy who was drafted #1 in 2014 that people were calling a bust just a few years later. For some reason in Minnesota, he was inconsistent and passive. I don't know, was it the culture, the fact that he had 4 coaches in 6 years, or he was just in a wrong role, asked to be a #1 or a #2. Whatever it is, the Warriors are the opposite. They have an elite culture, a stable franchise, and they ask him to do less, so he actually produces more. He actually said the league is in trouble when Klay comes back, and Klay dropped a huge hint about when that will be. But we cannot forget the role players, and we could mention a lot of names here. We could talk about Otto Porter or Nemanja Bjelica or Jordan Poole, but Gary Payton II came out of nowhere. Before the season, actually, and people don't mention this, the vets did not want him. They went to the front office and they demanded that the Dubs get that final roster spot to Avery Bradley. Instead, Bob Myers said no. Imagine that happening on any other team. Imagine Rob Pelinka, for example, telling LeBron, "No, I will not let go of over half our team to get Russell Westbrook." And GP2 is proving the front office right. His defense is a huge part of the Warriors' team defense overall. Dude even contributes offensively. 64% from the field as a guard and 42% from 3. So, when will we see Klay come back with this elite, deep team? Well, we've been teased this for so long with like his G League film and now the scrimmage and the 24 threes and all that stuff. But we know it's going to be early January. We know that. Then Klay dropped this hint.
Are you set on it being at home? I mean,
I want to play in front of our fans. They deserve this. First time in 2 years, they deserve to see me in the home unis.
So he is saying it will definitely be at home, and I would definitely predict it's January 9th against the Cavaliers. That is what Woj has reported. It is what Shams has reported. And look at the schedule coming up. He is not going to play at home against Miami here, and 6 of the next 7 are on the road. I guarantee Klay will return and play about 18 minutes January 9th against the Cavs. It has been so much fun to watch the Warriors this season. I don't even care that my stupid prediction was stupid. It's like they've recaptured the 2014-15 like feel and joy and heart of that team, which honestly I didn't think that they would do. But the feel and the joy and the heart obviously can't be at its potential without Klay Thompson, because that is what he brings just as much as any of his skill. His personality is one of the most likable players in the NBA. That's why I think so many people are so fascinated about when is Klay going to come back, because we all root for Klay Thompson. Like, never mind the 2 years he's been out with 2 catastrophic injuries, which you'd feel for any player. There's something about Klay that just makes you root for him even more, and I cannot wait for January 9th. Speaking of my stupid predictions, you know what? This hurts, but I'm going to recommend that you revisit my stupid preseason predictions. Look, I said the Warriors would be 5th. That's dumb, but where I had the Jazz, I owe them like a full apology video. Check it out.